Hello everyone. I am a PhD research scholar and I have qualified NET JRF. I and my friend have decided to make short comprehensive videos on various topics for the upcoming JKPSC 10 plus 2 lecturers exam for the subject of English. So stay tuned. Today we are beginning with the play Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. So let us begin. Hello everyone. Today we are going to do a brief and comprehensive study of William Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar is one of the Roman plays or plays based on Roman history, others being Antony and Cleopatra and Coriolanus. It's important to remember this point because it has been asked in papers sometimes. Now, Julius Caesar is based on the life of the Roman general and statesman whose name was Gaius Julius Caesar, and he lived during 100 BC to 44 BC. The tragedy of Julius Caesar is another name of the play, and it was first performed in 1599. Important to remember this detail. And it was first published in 1623 in the first folio. The second important point to remember is that what is first folio? It's a collection of 36 of Shakespeare's plays, where first time Shakespeare's plays were collected and published together by his fellow co-actors John Hemmings and Henry Condell. It also becomes one of the important points to remember. Now, the source that Shakespeare uses for his Julius Caesar is Plutarch's Lives, which is also known as the Parallel Lives, and which is a series of 48 biographies of famous men, which is written in Greek. Okay. Though he uses the source, but Shakespeare always deviates from the source material and adds something of his own always. Now, we are done with the source. Another point to remember is what is a triumvirate, because this question comes in the exam, so I'm just making you clear what a triumvirate actually is. It's a commission of three men which is appointed for specific tasks, or you can say a group of three important persons who would run the government together. The first triumvirate was formed in an unofficial manner, and it consisted of Julius Caesar himself, Pompeius, who is also called Pompey, and the third one is Marcus Licinius Crassus. This second person, the Pompey, is important one because it has a lot to do with the plot. We'll see it in the coming video. And then there is a second triumvirate. After Julius Caesar's death, the second triumvirate consisted of Octavius, Antony, and Lepidus. We'll see all who these three are. We'll see now who these three are. Now coming to the characters, the other most important part of a play is always characters. Julius Caesar himself, and after his death, the triumvirs, as we have seen here, is Octavius Caesar, who is his grand nephew and his heir to the throne. Then there is Mark Antony, who is also a Roman general and Caesar's friend, and then there is Lepidus, who is a Roman general and a statesman. Now these three are together running the government after the death of Julius Caesar. Now other important characters. First is the group of conspirators who conspire against Julius Caesar and assassinate him. It consisted of Marcus Junius Brutus, who is usually called by Brutus, the most important character of the play. Then there is Caius Cassius. He is the one who manipulates Brutus into joining him and assassinating Julius Caesar. Then there is Casca, an important character. Then there is Decius, he is also an important character. Then there is Cinna. Then there is Metilius, Tribonius, and Ligarius. Then one of the important characters is Titimius, who is a good friend of Gaius, and he has a part to play in the coming plot. Okay, then there are tribunes. You need to remember this because they both are in the opening scene, and they are found arguing with the commoners who are celebrating Caesar's return from a battle. And the tribunes are always the representative of common people. Then there are Roman senators, Cicero, the philosopher, Publius, and Poppius Lena. Now, citizens' mate is important. Who is Calpurnia? She is Caesar's wife. Then there is Portia, Brutus's wife, and there is Archimedes. He is an important character because he is the one who tries to warn Caesar of his assassination by giving him a letter in the street, but the Caesar pays no heed to him. Then there is another Cinna, the poet. Now he is important because he shares his name with Cinna the conspirator, and the crowd after Antony's speech kills Cinna the poet instead of Cinna the conspirator. Okay, now important points to remember are, first one of them is the two battles to remember. There is a mention of two battles in the play. The first is the Battle of Munda, which is fought between Julius Caesar and Pompey's sons. This is the same Pompey who was the member of the first triumvirate, as we discussed earlier. Caesar is victorious, he returns, and then there is a celebration on his return. This celebration marks the opening scene of the play. Now, the second battle which is mentioned is the Battle of Philippi, the final battle which takes place or which is fought between the new triumvirate, that is Octavius, Antony, and Lepidus, versus the collected army of Brutus and Cassius. One point which comes out of this is that because of the victory of this battle, Antony's sword is named Philippi. This question has also been asked sometimes, so it's okay to remember it. Okay, the next point to remember is what is Ides of March. Sorry, it's Ides. What is Ides of March? Ides, according to the Roman calendar, is the 15th day of any month. So, Ides of March is the 15th March according to the Roman calendar. It is very important because Caesar, the historical figure, was in fact assassinated on 15th March in 44 BC. Now, some important things to remember about Caesar himself are that he was deaf in the left ear, and second, he had epilepsy. The common name for epilepsy during those times was the falling disease, and it is also mentioned in the play when Antony offers Caesar the crown 3 times, and all 3 times it is denied by Caesar, and Caesar falls in front of the collected commons. Another point to remember is the supernatural elements in the play. These supernatural elements are mostly the omens, which foreshadow the upcoming events. The upcoming event, majorly Caesar's death. Now, Casca tells that he saw lion in the city, a man with a burning hand, dead man walking, all which made the conspirators think that some doom is about to fall on Rome, so they should kill Caesar. Then Calpurnia, who is Caesar's wife, as we know, Caesar's wife, on the day before his assassination, has weird dreams and she interprets them as bad omens. So she tries to convince Caesar to not go on that day. Now, what Calpurnia sees is, in her dream, she sees that Caesar's statue is oozing blood and all the Romans are washing their hands in it and are smiling at Calpurnia. She also mentions about a comet shower, which she interprets as heaven crying because the heavens only cry at the death of someone who is great, like Caesar. Then she talks about a lioness giving birth in the street, Then she also talks about graves opening, warriors fighting in the clouds, blood raining on the citadel, and many such omens which actually foreshadow what's about to happen. Now, also, it's important to remember that Decius, one of the conspirators, he still manages to persuade Caesar into going by saying that Calpurnia has misinterpreted the omens and the Senate of Rome is waiting for Caesar. Now, there is also a mention of Caesar's ghost, one of the other supernatural elements, who warns Brutus of his defeat at the Battle of Philippi. Brutus sees Caesar's ghost in his tent, and the ghost says to him, "Thou shalt see me at Philippi." Now, next important point to remember is about Caesar's will. This is mentioned by Mark Antony in his speech, but he does not read the will until the end of his speech. According to the will, Caesar gives every person of Rome 75 drachmas, the currency of that time, and he opens all his private parks and gardens for the public use. Now, another important point to remember is the forged letters. This is important because using those, Cassius, who is the master conspirator, he convinces Brutus into joining the conspirators. Cassius forges some letters and asks Cinna to plant them in Brutus's home. Then, on reading those letters, which apparently are from the citizens of Rome, saying that they are not happy with the rule of Caesar. Then, knowing this, Brutus is then convinced of Caesar being a tyrant and then joins the conspirators. Now we'll follow a brief summary of the play, or you can say the plot. The play opens with the two tribunes that we mentioned, that is Flavius and Marius. Tribunes, you need to know, are the representative of the people who represent people to the government. They were appointed leaders or officials of the Rome, you can say, and then discovering that the commoners of Rome are celebrating Julius Caesar's triumphant return from defeating the sons of his military rival Pompey, the tribunes, insulting the crowd for their change in loyalty from Pompey to Caesar, attempt to end the festivities and break up the commoners, who return the insults at them. And after this, both of the tribunes are fired from their jobs. Then during the festival of Lupercal, it's also an important festival which was celebrated in ancient Rome. During this festival, the people of the citizens of the Rome took part in a foot race and ran around their city. Caesar and during this festival, Caesar holds a victory parade, and the soothsayer, there comes a soothsayer, and he warns him by saying, "Beware of the Ides of March," that we just discussed above, here, which Caesar ignores. Meanwhile, Cassius attempts to convince Brutus to join the conspiracy to kill Caesar. Now, although Brutus, who is friendly towards Caesar, is hesitant to kill him, but he agrees that Caesar may be abusing his power. And how he agrees is because of the forged letters. They then hear from Casca that Mark Antony has offered Caesar the crown of Rome 3 times. It's also important to remember. Casca tells them that each time Caesar refused it with increasing reluctance, hoping that the crowd watching would insist that he accept the crown. He describes how the crowd applauded Caesar for denying the crown and how this upset Caesar. This is all what Casca is telling the conspirators. Now, on the eve of the Ides of March, the day of death of Caesar, the conspirators meet and reveal that they have forged letters. The forged letters which will ultimately force Brutus to join the conspirators, of support from the Roman people to tempt Brutus into joining. Brutus reads those letters, and after much moral debate, he decides to join the conspiracy, thinking that Caesar should be killed to prevent from doing anything against the people of Rome if he were ever to be crowned. after ignoring the soothsayer, who warns Caesar of his death, as well as his wife Calpurnia's own premonitions, that is, the omens, Caesar goes to the Senate. The conspirators approach him with a fake petition, pleading on the behalf of Metilius Cimber's banished brother. As Caesar predictably rejects the petition, Casca and the others suddenly stab him. It's important to note that the Casca was the first to stab and Brutus the last. At this, on seeing Brutus stab him, Caesar asks, "Et tu brute," which means, "and you brute," or "you to Brutus," concluding with, "then fall Caesar." It's an important quote to remember. "Et tu brute, then fall Caesar." The conspirators attempt to demonstrate that they killed Caesar for the good of Rome and to prevent an autocrat. They prove this by not attempting to flee the scene. Brutus delivers an oration defending his actions, and for the moment, the crowd is on his side. However, Antony makes a subtle and eloquent speech over Caesar's corpse, beginning, "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears." He deftly turns public opinion against the assassins by manipulating the emotions of the common people, in contrast to the rational tone of Brutus's speech. Yet there is a method in his rhetorical speech and gestures. Antony reminds the crowd of the good Caesar had done for Rome, his sympathy with the poor, and his refusal of the crown at the Lupercal, thus questioning Brutus's claim of Caesar's ambitions. Actually, Brutus claimed that they killed Caesar because he was over ambitious, and Antony, in his speech, is contrasting that point. He shows Caesar's bloody, lifeless body to the crowd to have them shed tears and gain sympathy for their fallen hero. He at last reads Caesar's will that we discussed earlier, in which every Roman citizen would receive 75 drachmas and a free passage to all the private lands and parks which Caesar owned. Antony, even as he states his intentions against it, rouses the mob to drive the conspirators from Rome. That is why Mark Antony's speech becomes very important. And it's an important point to remember. Amid the violence, an innocent poet, Cinna, is confused with the conspirator Lucius Cinna and is taken by the mob, which kills him for such offenses as his bad verses. Brutus then attacks Cassius. Now, this scene actually shifts, and after the mob drives the conspirators away, Brutus attacks Cassius for supposedly soiling the noble act of regicide by having accepted bribes. Now, regicide is the act of killing one's king. What he says is, "Did not great Julius bleed for justice's sake? What villain touched his body that did stab, and not for justice?" Now, Brutus and Cassius are reconciled, especially after Brutus reveals that his beloved wife, who is Portia, committed suicide under the stress of his absence from Rome. They prepare for a civil war against Antony, Caesar's adopted son Octavius, and Lepidus, which we discussed earlier, who have now formed a triumvirate in Rome. Now, that night, Caesar's ghost appears to Brutus with a warning of defeat. He informs Brutus by saying, "Thou shalt see me at Philippi." Now, at the Battle of Philippi, Cassius and Brutus, knowing that they will probably both die, smile their last smiles to each other and hold their hands. Now, during the battle, Cassius has his servant kill himself. Cassius has his servant kill him after hearing of the capture of his best friend Titinius, but who is alive. After Titinius, who was not captured and is alive, sees Cassius's corpse, he commits suicide. However, Brutus wins the stage of the battle, but his victory is not conclusive. With a heavy heart, Brutus battles against the next day. He asks his friends to kill him, but the friends refuse. He loses and commits suicide by running on his sword, which is held by a loyal servant. And it is also an important point here to remember that among the Romans, suicide is considered to be an honorable thing. It could be asked in the question. Now, the play ends with the tribute to Brutus by Antony. This is also very important because Antony knew that Brutus was not doing it for his good, but he was doing it for Rome's good, who proclaimed that Brutus has remained the noblest Roman of them all because he was the only conspirator who acted in his mind for the good of Rome. There is then a small hint at the friction between Antony and Octavius, which characterizes another of Shakespeare's Roman play, that is Antony and Cleopatra. This is a small, concise summary which you can read on any of the websites. You can go through multiple websites to have a complete understanding of the plot. Now, let's look at few important quotations. The first one is Beware the Ides of March. As we have seen earlier, it is said by the soothsayer to Caesar in order to warn him about his impending death. Now, second is the fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars but in ourselves, that we are underlings. This is also important because the Fault in Our Stars novel takes its title from here. The novel is by John Green, and this is said by Cassius. Now, another one is Et tu Brute, then fall Caesar, which is obviously said by Caesar when he sees his friend among the conspirators, who is Brutus. On pardon me, thou bleeding piece of earth, that I am meek and gentle with these butchers. This is said by Antony, and the line down also follows this: cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. Antony says this when he sees Caesar's dead body and all the conspirators standing around him. And this is also important because there is a novel by the name The Dogs of War by Frederick Forsyth. And this is also important because there is a novel by the name of The Dogs of War, which takes its title from this, which is written by Frederick Forsyth. Now, this is the most important speech, Mark Antony's speech, which starts with the line, Friends, Roman countrymen, lend me your ear. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. And you should read the complete speech because it is very important, and there are also many quotes which are taken from this speech only. And it's also important to note here, throughout his speech, Antony calls the conspirators honorable men, though all ironically. Now, in this speech, he also says, if you have tears, prepare to shed them now. This is to influence the crowd to change their mood from being on the side of conspirators to be against them. Then there is another quote. There is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at flood leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in misery. This is by Brutus, and by this quote he only means by the phrase seize the day. Another line from Antony's speech is, this was the most unkindest cut of all, which he says in commemorating Caesar. Then there is, a serpent's egg which hatches would his kind, grows mischievous and kill him in the shell. This is said by Brutus when he is made to believe that Caesar is a tyrant. Now let it work, mischief, thou art afoot. Take thou, but course thou well. This is said by Antony to himself after his famous speech. When he sees that he has changed the mind of crowds, he says this to himself. Cowards die many times. before their deaths. The valiant never taste death but once. This is an important quote, and it is said by Caesar to his wife Calpurnia, who keeps on imploring him not to go on that ominous day. The evil that men do lives after them, the good is oft interred with their bones. This is said by Antony in the eulogy for Caesar. I have a man's mind, but a woman's might. This is also an interesting quote and an important one. This is said by Portia, Brutus's wife, when she comes to know about Brutus's secret of joining the conspirators. She says that I may have a man's mind, but still I'm a woman. Now, speak of hands is an important phrase because this is used to alert the conspirators that time has come. It was a clue to kill Caesar. And one of the most famous lines is the noblest Roman of them all, which is said by Antony to Brutus, as we discussed earlier. Now, this is a brief and comprehensive study of Julius and Caesar. Hopefully, all of the questions can be covered from this. Still, you can go through multiple sources to completely cover every portion of the plot. Hope you like the video, and if you like, please give it a like, and if you have any suggestions, please do comment and please subscribe. Thank you so much. Please stay tuned for the MCQs on Julius Caesar, a video for which will be uploaded very shortly. Thank you.